From before the day he was even born, Rondale Moore has been beating the odds mostly put on him because of his size. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rondale Moore has some pretty tough odds to beat to get his career back on track, but the good news is he's been beating the odds his whole life. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast. Elijah Sindelar is probably not a name that you're super familiar with unless you're like a huge Big Ten sicko, Purdue quarterback for a while. And his NFL career, he never had an NFL career. He retired after college football. But back in 2018, he didn't know that it was going to end that ceremoniously. He was supposed to be the guy for Purdue. And as the guy, he was to meet one of his incoming receivers, a 5'7", baby-faced kid, braces and everything, looking at him going like, how is this going to be at all helpful to the offense? But little did he know, he was meeting his offense. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. Today, we are continuing with the Everyman series, a series here on the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we go over the journey to the NFL, the backstory, the personality, and trying to get to know every new incoming Viking as a person rather than as an analytical commodity. Today, we're talking about Rondale Moore. Before Rondale Moore was even born, he was going to have trouble with his size. His mother had to go on a bunch of steroids during the pregnancy when they found out he was going to be an incredibly premature baby. 5 weeks preemie. Lungs underdeveloped, like very touch and go fight for survival at the beginning of his life. Obviously, things turned out, but that very much sets the tone. That's not to say that Rondale Moore was like always going to be this, struggling, frail, sickly kid. Very much the opposite. He was in all kinds of sports, and the influence in his life was Geno Rowan, his cousin, but more like his uncle. He like cousin, but 20 years older than him. So kind of an uncle role. And those two are like inseparable. Those two are extraordinarily close. And Rowan would put him in all kinds of sports, and he would be the best kid on the field or the court or the whatever, like for all of them. Like there are all kinds of anecdotes through the millions of stories that you'll get. There are so many like Puff PC articles. I'm taking a lot from an ESPN article written from his time in Purdue and one from NFL.com when he was coming out for the draft. But he did play youth football, and that league had to install a mercy rule specifically for him so that the other kids wouldn't feel too bad when he would blow them out so bad. He could do 200 push-ups as a middle schooler. He could do like 10 consecutive backflips, and they actually thought, man, you've got the perfect stature for gymnastics. Maybe we should put you in that. But basketball was the love. Basketball was the one he really, and he was good. And it was just a matter of like when kids started growing up, he didn't grow up big enough, and basketball pretty quickly became like not as much of an option just because of specifically his height. But football very much was. His physique will very much work against him. He goes to New Albany High School for the first couple of years. And he's working out all the time with Geno Rowan. Here is going to be a trope of this story. Rondale Moore is always in the gym. You can always find him in the gym. He's like that bit character from The Good Place that it like will just leave in the middle of a conversation to like go to the gym. He is like that guy. Almost is like that is the guy that The Good Place was parodying. Is Rondale Moore. It's this incredibly insane work ethic that is bred of always being small, always being overlooked. And later in the college recruiting process, that is going to get turned up to 11. So he will transfer to Trinity High School, which is like the school of schools, 25 state championships, all kinds of, big talent comes out of Trinity in the Louisville area, which is where he grows up. And that's like where he wants to go to get like real D1 college opportunities playing football. And he knows he can. He knows he's good enough. He is small, but he's so shifty. He's so fast. He's just so unbelievably athletically talented. There's actually, this is the craziest one to me. There's a video from his time at Purdue where he squats 600 pounds as a guy listed at 180 at the time. It's just this ungodly thing to watch this dude surrounded by all of his teammates, all of whom are way bigger than him, and many of whom probably can't do this. Hyping him up as he squats 600 at his size. It's unbelievable. But because of the physique and because of what happens to him when he transfers to Trinity, which is the transfer rules and like waiting period, the timing is terrible and he misses most of his junior year. He will only play in his junior year in the playoffs, and not even all of the playoffs. They had to win a playoff game to get Rondale on the field. And just in that game, he does enough to get people to kind of perk up. But when you're on the recruiting trail, unfortunately, the junior year is kind of the most important one. It's the one where you're going to start talking to colleges and interviewing and going through that process after your junior year. So for them to decide to start that process with you, even though they have all the way, until well after you're done with senior year to offer a scholarship if they want to, most of those teams are starting the process way before. And they've kind of got no real reason to look at you. You played like 2 games. So he grows up, big Louisville fan from the area, doesn't get any smoke from them at all. No, nothing. Just doesn't even hear for him. And it's a chip on his shoulder. And he doesn't get any bites at the apple from anybody, except for Jamarcus Shepard, who is ultimately going to be his wide receiver coach at Purdue and is also a recruiter, who sees that playoff game and is like, that's interesting, isn't it? And turns on some of the, gets some other materials and sees some juice here. And he's like intrigued, and he's like, there's no way anybody else knows about this guy. So around that time, Rondale Moore will go to this like regional qualifier for something called The Opening. It's a Chicago area recruiting event. And or it's a Chicago area qualifier for this like big recruiting thing called The Opening. And Jamarcus Shepard is there, and he's got his little stopwatch, and he's watching. It's like this kind of combine-esque event. And Rondale Moore gets up there and runs a 4.33. And Jamarcus Shepard is like, damn it. Now everyone knows. He's at this thing. All the eyeballs are on this kind of event. It's like what it's for. And he just ripped off a 4.33. Everyone is going to be asking about him and go looking at his tape. And they're all going to find what I found. Crap. Well, we're never getting this kid. Sure enough, they are not even to the parking lot. His cousin, Rondale Moore, and his cousin Gino are not even to the parking lot before they're starting to get calls from Ohio State and Texas. Ultimately, Rondale Moore will actually commit to Texas, but only in that like handshaky way, and he doesn't feel very good about it. But he will ultimately go to Purdue. It's a pretty shocking decision. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on the like recruiting drama thing. He's got the baseball caps and he's in front of him and he puts on the Purdue one and everybody's super surprised. But he had offers from all these way bigger schools. But there are 2 main reasons I should tell you that are why he goes to Purdue. For one, Jeff Brom, coach of Purdue at the time, was a Trinity alum that Rondale Moore already knew about and kind of looked up to. So the idea of playing for him was exciting. But for 2, it's about being the guy. That idea has already come up a couple times in this story, but the idea of not just being a guy on an offense, not being a cog in the machine, but being the dude, the guy. There's a big difference between a guy and the guy. And if you go to Ohio State, well, they got NFL talent out the wazoo. They got Marvin Harrison Jr.'s over there. You're not going to be the guy for Marvin Harrison with Marvin Harrison Jr. on the same team as you. You'll be a guy. If you go to Purdue, you get to be the guy, as long as you live up to your hype. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. If you're a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. You got all kinds of things to think about and try to figure out whatever it is. Your partner needs you. Your employees need you, your hiring decisions are keeping you awake at night, and LinkedIn can help you out with that last one. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. They have all kinds of features that can help you with this. Deep candidate insights. You can they have a tool that helps you write job descriptions, and their purple #hiring frame can double your reach to qualified candidates. 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is where we join Elijah Sindelar and David Blau and later Aiden O'Connell, the quarterbacks that get to play with Rondale Moore. Sindelar's the first one to meet him, and he just sees this, like, this can't be the guy you're going to make me throw to. This looks like somebody, like a kid that would be working at the Target down the road as a summer job. Like, there's no way. And then he takes the practice field for the first time. And like the first time you see him run a route, everyone, Sindelar, the coaches, people who are like naysayers on the recruiting, are like, oh, everyone is immediately like, I get it now. The play style here for Rondale Moore in high school and in his early college years is very much ankle breaker. And this will hit the national stage. And I honestly think there's no better way to get to understand what people are looking at than to go watch his first game. There's a YouTube cut up of it. I'll link it in the show notes. Remind me, yell at me if I forget. There's a YouTube cut up of Rondale Moore's debut game against Northwestern. And it starts with a couple of unceremonious kick returns, and then he kind of busts one. And then every once in a while, there's this play that it's the same corner every time, by the way. I feel so terrible for whoever number 3 on Northwestern was, because that dude's ankles, I think, are still in the shadow realm. But it's either like a jet sweep or some kind of like perimeter play where it's this like race to the edge, and he just sticks a foot in the ground and cuts up field. And that poor corner is like whiffing, just like wondering when his next meal is going to come. Like, it is horrible. It's just like war crimes to these guys. And you see that and you go, oh my God, yeah. Anybody who like turned that on and saw that immediately doesn't care that he's 5'7". He's just that dynamic and electric. He will become the guy for Purdue. Their offense essentially tailors itself around him and that specific ability. If you ask Jeff Brom about it, he's like, yeah, we were basically like, we had a certain amount of times we just wanted to get the ball in his hands in space and just like let him do stuff. It wasn't scheme. It wasn't, X's and O's and game planning and matchups. It's just, okay, let's just get that dude the ball over by the numbers and see what he can do. And it just like worked pretty well. These Purdue teams weren't the best. They never made, the college football playoff. They were at best hovering around 500. At worst, it was worse. But if you flipped on a Purdue game, you were going to see Rondale Moore do some stuff. They might not win that game, but Rondale Moore was going to do some stuff. And it was like that throughout college. But there is a moment that I think is fairly indicative of how people get to know him. Rondale Moore is the gym rat. Like I said, I mean, he is constantly trying to find a way to work a little harder to make up for all the little deficiencies that, God didn't give him. And so he'll win the Paul Hornung Award. I think this is his last year in college for the most versatile player. And on the night of the ceremony, and maybe the biggest test for all of this is his first year against Ohio State, right? The blue blood of blue bloods, Ohio State. He was recruited by Ohio State. When he did his little recruiting like announcement and he had all the hats lined up, he like grabs the Ohio State hat and goes, and like almost puts it on and then throws it away. He does like a little fake out, right? So it's this like spurn on Ohio State. And the reason was pretty respectful to the rest of the class of Ohio State. He didn't want to be just one guy amongst a bunch of superstars. He wanted to be the dude. So when Purdue beats Ohio State 49-20, it proves everything about this right. It is vindicating for everyone involved. For Rondale Moore, the offense worked. For the coaches that decided to recruit him, look at this, we can beat Ohio State. It works so well. Now, this is a college football program. Emphasis on the college. If you're going to win a game like that, folks are going to party. Kids are going to go out and do. The coaches tell all their kids, look, nothing good ever happens after midnight. Don't be too crazy. But everyone's going to go out and party. This is another through line of all of these stories. You'll see a lot of situations like this where everybody went out to the club and Rondale Moore drank water. But Jamarcus Shepard gets a phone call at 2 a.m. And it's oh crap, what could this be? This can't be good. Rondale Moore is calling me at 2 a.m. And he's a little bit buzzed too. He's still up. The coaches are celebrating too, let's be honest, right? And Rondale Moore's hey, second quarter, the second down over here. Do you think I did this wrong? It's dude, you're watching tape? What the heck? We'll talk about it later. A similar anecdote comes from later in his college career. He'll win the Paul Hornung Award for the most versatile player in college football. On the night of the ceremony, everyone's got to show up at 6 o'clock. And Chris Vaughn, who is his trainer, is confident. Chris Vaughn is a name that's been with him throughout all of this, who's very willing to talk. A lot of the quotes and stories that are in this story are from Chris Vaughn telling it to various reporters throughout several articles. By the way, fun fact, Chris Vaughn, also on the 2009 Saints. Second time they've come up in this series, and we're 4 dudes in, so that's fun. But as the story goes, Chris Vaughn's waiting for him to show up, and everybody's all dressed to the nines, and they're ready for this award ceremony, and he's not there. Oh my God, is he late? What's going to happen? Is he missing? Did he get in trouble? He's never, oh my God, what's going on? It's 2 hours before showtime, and they finally get a hold of him, and he's what? I was at the gym. And I didn't have a phone on me. Damn it. What are you doing? And I don't know. To me, personally, with, I'll say, the chemistry of my brain, that's unthinkable to me. I'm one of those people that if I have an appointment at 3 o'clock, I kind of can't do anything for the whole day. So I got to be there at 6, but I could sneak in a workout. That's the kind of mentality that we're looking at here. So you have this electric player, but a fairly unconventional one. The thing about Rondale Moore is that he wasn't running routes, he wasn't, it wasn't not running routes, but he was his production is all, gadget plays and, bubble screen, get him the ball in space and let him cook. That's the offense, right? You're not really looking at an NFL style offense there when you're scouting him. And that makes it kind of difficult when it is time to declare for the NFL draft. Again, Rondale Moore has always wanted to be the guy, and being the guy at Purdue is one thing, but being the guy in the NFL is really that's the ultimate summit. He's like any kid, would go to a sports game and see if you can't get an autograph from the guy if you can get to the tunnel and get an autograph from the guy and whatever. He's been that kid looking up to those athletes. He's wanted to be that athlete with kids looking up to him. And the NFL, it has to be the goal for that. But when you're this kind of weird, gadget player, where do you land? What are they going to do with you? That becomes the central question where things start to get a lot harder, a lot faster. And we'll go over it next on Locked On Vikings. You might remember a viral story from the summer of 2023 where Rondale Moore posts a picture of his pinky and it's all messed up. It's right angle. For Vikings fans, we aren't fazed by this. Alan Page has been enthusiastically showing us his pinky at basically any event he is at for years and years and years. It is a thing. He does it every single time. I think it's hilarious. Seriously, look it up. He does it all the time. And it's it's the same deal. Something has happened with his pinky, and people are whoa, what happened to you? And I think that's very symbolic. A, that's your hand. You need that. You're catching the ball. But B, it's symbolic of the difference between college ball, high school ball, where Rondale Moore is so dominant, and the NFL, where obviously things didn't shake out the same. He'll get drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in 2021, and it's probably the best possible destination. If the question about Rondale Moore is, can he function in a pro-style offense, Arizona is maybe the one team that could have taken him that doesn't force you to answer that question, because this is Cliff Kingsbury. This is not a pro-style offense. This is a college offense. It still is a college offense in Washington. I mean, it's been in the league for long enough where maybe you have to call it pro style on its own merit, but like, this is exactly the kind of brain that is going to know how to use Rondale Moore. But that doesn't mean it's going to be just as easy, because in the NFL, everyone is faster. Windows close faster. Angles need to be faster. Angles are tighter. The game moves faster. You have to learn things faster. Like, it's not just the physical speed of the people on the field. You have to absorb more information, more playbook. He's done that when he first moved to Trinity High. He had to learn everything really, really fast, and he did download all that great, but the NFL is a different beast. And it's also a lot more physical. On that Northwestern highlight reel from his debut game, there's a kick return where he just gets absolutely popped. I mean, it's one of these like old school kick returns, the kind of thing they're trying to ban now. 2 guys running start. The dude just gets absolutely ragdolled. And that's where you see, okay, yeah, he still is like, there's just not enough Rondale Moore. There's just not enough meat on those bones to withstand a hit like that. He pops right up though. He's tough. And you have to be, I think, to be able to take hits from guys bigger than you constantly and pop back up every single time. But your mental toughness, your fortitude is only going to take you so far if your body fails you. This is where things get tough for Rondale Moore. A hamstring injury kind of messes with his rookie year, and it's not really the same. It looked like it was going to be great. If you may even remember, week 2, 2021, Vikings go to Arizona and lose on a missed Greg Joseph field goal. Remember that game? Rondale Moore cooked. Rondale Moore had like this busted coverage moment. Another one where he like made a guy, I think it was maybe Bashad Breeland, maybe it was Dantzler, like made him like totally swinging on air, made him miss, and the Vikings lost that game. It looked like they had figured out a way to make Rondale Moore was athletic enough to be an NFL talent, even if it wasn't in the conventional way. But it just never really took off in the same way. And this maybe was a symptom of a larger disease in Arizona. Obviously, most everybody who is responsible for that offense is gone now, except maybe Kyler Murray himself. And it just never really took off. Headed into 2023, he's got this hand issue and stuff, and I think he does end up coming back healthy from it, but it's still like the offense still isn't really working. And the plant a leg, juke a guy, and leave him whiffing works great on number 3 on Northwestern, but not necessarily when you're trying to do that to like Tariq Woolen or Jalen Ramsey, right? He understands this going into the NFL. So Chris Vaughn and Jamarcus Shepard are working with him like throughout the kind of pre-draft process, and even into his rookie year, they work with him on route running and stuff. And, the Arizona's coaches, of course, are trying to work with him on more traditional route running, but it's a process, and it's one that he's behind compared to somebody that had a more like traditional wide receiver career in college. So it's not working. Cliff Kingsbury is getting heat. Rondale Moore is getting heat. Steve Keim is getting heat. You remember these Arizona teams. Like, they were getting blasted all the time. Eventually, Monty Ossenfort, who takes over for Steve Keim, says, hey, this isn't working. We're going to do some rebuild stuff here. We're going to shop you. This is in March of 2024. And if we can turn our attention to the 2024 Atlanta Falcons, a team the Vikings and Vikings fans had to be pretty intimately familiar with because of Kirk Cousins going over there. And the comp pick stuff of all that and the tampering, and I remember all that was going on. That was that March, right? So shortly after the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins, they will call and trade for Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore knows that a trade is coming at some point, but he doesn't know when. So where does he go? Well, he turns his phone off and he hits the gym. So he'll miss the call that he gets from, I think it's his agent or maybe it's Monty Ossenfort. Somebody calls him, to tell him he's been traded, and it goes straight to voicemail. At this point, Monty Austinfort knows the guy, knows exactly what it's like. Okay, he's at the gym. He'll get me back later. But it's like, again, like he was like working out, and like the moment that was supposed to happen didn't happen. But that work ethic has not faltered at all. That I'm going to outwork everybody, that I'm going to I'm going to squat 600 pounds kind of guy. He's still very much that kind of guy. So he goes to the Falcons. It's a traditional offense. It's, Kirk Cousins, a traditional style quarterback. You're not doing this weird Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury thing anymore. This is a team that's going to, that fancies itself as serious, and at the time is favored to win its division. Didn't happen, but they were favored. They will go to joint practices with the Miami Dolphins. And near the end of one of those practices, Rondale Moore makes one of his signature cuts. And the thing that you kind of worry about happening every time he sticks his leg in the ground and fakes somebody out finally happens. Non-contact knee injury. Down. Players on a knee. Cart out. Air cast. He will not play, of course, in the 2024 season. He will never take a snap for the Falcons at all. They let him walk. He goes into free agency, and now here he is in Minnesota. The reporting around this injury has been nebulous at best. We don't even know what the injury actually is. We don't know what ligament it was or ligaments. That was never reported that I could find. And through the grapevine, it sounds like this is a recovery that he is still dealing with. It is a much different reality. And this is a story not necessarily, like, if you're making the Hallmark movie, it's probably about small kid takes on big football world. And you probably end the movie after they beat Ohio State. But his journey to be the guy in the NFL was ultimately undone by the same names that dissuaded him from committing to Ohio State in the first place. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., who joins in 2024, and Arizona knew he was going to join in 20. They picked like fourth, and it was very chalk draft up to that point. So it was very clear that they were going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. And Rondale Moore. No, that's wrong. What am I talking about? Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. Harrison Jr. And Rondale Moore is the odd man out. And he could have been the guy in Atlanta. We don't know. He was having kind of a hot camp up to that point, but who knows how much that means. But Atlanta rolled on. They had a season with Darnell Mooney and Olamide Zaccheaus. That was their dude. I think Zaccheaus was still there last year. Those were their dudes. Okay, Kyle Pitts, they're doing that thing. And the world moves on. The NFL is brutal and unforgiving. And it's so jarring. It's almost tragedy to read these articles, and I've linked a couple of them in the show notes, from a time where everything was hope and potential, was, oh my God, this kid is such a phenom. From, like draft era, or, his recruiting trail of everybody's eyes bulging out of their sockets like Wile E. Coyote saw Jessica Rabbit. And to read those under the context of knowing that Rondale Moore is like fighting for wide receiver 4 with a rookie this year, if healthy, is so jarring. But that's what the NFL is. It's not a story where you get to tell the Hallmark movie all the time, because the career continues on after the credits roll on the Hallmark movie and bad things happen. There's nothing you can do about it. This is not a happy story to me, but it's also not a story that's over. Rondale Moore wants to be the guy. Chances are that doesn't happen in Minnesota. There are too many other people in Minnesota who already have a claim to that title. But if Rondale Moore can get healthy, can become a part of the Vikings offense, and can show that his skills are still about him, he's only on a 1-year deal, and this can be the stop where he proves himself and then goes off into free agency next year and makes a bunch of money. That has to be what it is for him. And that's not always the easiest. If Rondale Moore can't get healthy, or if he doesn't come back the same athlete as he was, that's always possible with these kinds of knee injuries, that all that athleticism that made him who he is may not be with him anymore. The worst versions of this story, where Rondale Moore becomes, a sort of just a depth guy, or worse, gets cut, it's going to have to change the outlook. And you're going to have to look at this, instead of saying, I want to be the guy, you have to maybe just be grateful that you get to be a guy again. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.